Welcome to Truth and Company Podcast. I'm your host, John the Truth Dioria, and today my guest is a musician known for his acoustic singer-songwriter style. He has played in numerous bands, duos, and has done a lot of solo shows over the last 4 decades in the Twin Ports and surrounding areas. He averages over 200 shows a year and is known as one of the busiest gigging musicians in the local scene, performing in local pubs, cafes, outdoor venues, and I've heard he'll even perform at a campfire if there's s'mores. Let me bring on musician John Seguin. How you doing, John?
Hi. Good. Good morning, John.
So is that true? You perform at campfires as long as they got s'mores?
Yeah, they sometimes would bring me along. My brother would bring me along. 27 years I've been going up north, and they took me along for arts and entertainment. Everybody had a job. We had a chef, we had an engineer, and so they take me up there and I'd play a little bit.
Okay. So I mentioned 4 decades of performing. That's insane. And for people that don't understand that, that's a little over 40 years you've really been playing. And so what does that mean when you hear somebody say that you've been playing for roughly 40 years?
Well, for myself, I started playing when I was pretty young. I've seen pictures of me playing guitar when I was 2 with my dad. My dad played guitar. And so I think he would do it on purpose. He'd kind of leave it open. He was trying to get me to play it, and he'd weave his pick in there, and I'd pick it up. But I didn't really learn how to play anything until I was really learn how to play until I was like 10. I started fooling around with it. He showed me a few chords. So I'm pretty much self-taught. I took some lessons from Mark Bennett when I was a kid at Showpro. I think I took about 6 or 7 lessons from him. I got frustrated with my lessons when they tried to have me go to Johnny's Music because they wanted me to learn Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I didn't want to learn it. I wanted to learn something cool. Yeah. My dad was a big country guy. I didn't really want to do that back then. I love country now, and I play a pretty wide variety of things now. But so yeah, I started playing out when I was, I think the first gig I did, was I 17 when I first played out. So I'm 61 right now.
Well, when you hear somebody saying that you've been doing this for 40 years, I mean, we were just talking off air. Most bands or musicians, maybe, you're talking 5-10 years, and you've been doing this for 40. That's just remarkable.
Yeah, it's been 46 years. Yeah, 46 years I've been playing out for pay. I meant to do. I would write some songs with my buddy Casey when we were kids, and we got a band together back then, and we were going to do some original stuff, but then we kind of did some covers, and we got caught in that cycle there. We were in the scene here where we started playing some of those gigs, and then eventually I joined another cover band after that band dissolved when we were kids. And but we were playing the teen club, the Odyssey it was called. I think it used to be, then it was Faces after that. So it used to be above the Shishka Bar right on Lake Avenue on First Street when it first started off.
So now, most recently, now you can correct me if I'm wrong here. You've been performing with the bands Croon Juice, the Rhythm Brothers, and Boomstick. So what's going on with that right now?
Well, right now I still play with the Rhythm Brothers a little bit. I backed off from Boomstick and Croon Juice. It's kind of a loaded question because I started with them about 6 years ago in Boomstick. I joined this band. And I was going to be the bass player. I was just going to take it easy. I wasn't going to be the singer because I sing a lot. So, and I do usually 3 to 7 gigs a week. And I have been for the last, like Andy and I started doing duo stuff, and I've been doing duos and solo stuff for, the last 17 years around here, like steady. So and I've always played 3 to 7 nights a week. I'm sorry, I'm just waking up here. So what was the point? What was the point there again?
Well, I know most recently those are the 3 bands kind of that you've been associated with.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to know what was going on with that.
Yeah, so I said I was never going to be in a band again. So I made it 8 years without being in an actual band because I was in bands my whole life. And that was the majority of my playing. It was like 3 to 5 nights a week, three, 4 nights a week, typically when you're in a band, and then rehearsal night and all that stuff, and playing all over the place. Mainly the, Charlie's D's tour in West Duluth, back and forth there a lot with one band or another. And I was in two bands at the same time a few times there. Inside Out, I was in at the same time. I was in the band called Top Heavy back then. But so I can't even remember, I was going to write down a list of the bands I've been in because I can't remember some of it. Until I think about it. But Boomstick and Croon Juice, that ended up, Boomstick was the band. So I joined it. And Luke Nine was the singer for that band. And he also played keys. He didn't play keys in that band. And my good friend Rick Turk was in the band. And he kind of said, hey, we lost our bass player, Darren. Would you like to come and play bass? And I played bass for 10 years also in bands because we'd lose a bass player. And I still had my bass, but I had to get my chops up. So I learned like 40 songs. And right at that time, then Luke quit. And so I was like, they were asking me if I would maybe sing some background vocals too. I said, let me get up to speed. We were doing like Iron Maiden, and we were doing like some metal and some, some grunge, and some 90s grunge, a few things. And so I finally got getting up to speed on that. And then Luke quit. And then when he quit, they said, would you sing? And I was like, and I should have probably said no at that time because I was just really busy as it was. That wasn't the point. I was just going to hang out with my friends and play some music. So I sold the bass rig that I just bought to my friend Dave Prudhomme. Dave Prudhomme joined the band, and then we turned into that band with Rick Turk. Well, then Rick Turk left. But when Rick Turk left, we turned it into two bands. So Croon Juice was like a retro thing to fill that thing. So we learned two separate song lists. So I rehearsed every Tuesday for the last 6 years with those guys. And I was still just as busy, but I was taking more time for the band. The band was taking more time for me. So I just decided to get back out of that again. So I quit back in April here, which I probably still will do some things. I just played with the Rhythm Brothers just last week, filling in for Tom Cockett down at the Barker's Island. So
okay,
and yeah.
All right, so you just mentioned Andy a minute ago, and I want to talk about that too. For people that don't know, you're in a duo called John and Andy. And so what's the history between you and Andy, and how long have you guys been playing together?
Well, okay, so let's see. I met Andy when he was in high school, and the reason I met him was because I was in a band with Ernie Ellefson, who, rest in peace, he just passed away not too long ago. Great guitar player, and pretty well known around here. Very, 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 very good guitar player. He used to write music too. He wrote a symphony, stuff like that. So he was Andy Hosworth's guitar teacher back then, and that's how I met Andy. He asked if I would go and sing. Let's see, we sang Aces High, I think, or was it 2 Minutes to Midnight? I sang that. They needed a singer anyway for their high school talent thing, so over in Superior. So I went with Ernie, and we played with his band, and did Amanda by Boston. Yeah, there were 4 songs. Yeah, we did an Aerosmith song too. That's right. Yeah. I guess there's a video floating around. I'd like to see that, but. So that's how long I've known Andy. And then I'd see him in different bands, LA Peds, Detour, and then he was in the Loose Cannons. But he was doing a duo with, I think, Paul Newberg, playing down at the Radisson, whatever they were calling it at that time. That's changed names down at the bar. But and he asked if I would maybe come and sit in with him one night because Paul couldn't make it. And then so we started playing a little bit more. And I used to do rock when I was playing in the band most of the time, but I sat around and I played like singer-songwriter stuff all the time at home because that's what I like playing on an acoustic guitar. It's always sitting there, pick it up. And so we did a lot of that stuff, just kind of did a little bit of what we both knew. And then we started singing some Simon and Garfunkel, and we did harmony-based stuff to where we were doing a lot of vocals, and that worked really well. And the next thing you know, we were playing up at Aces, and then we played for 6 years at every Thursday for over 6 years at the Pickwick. So, and among other things, garden parties and little clubs and wedding events and special event things.
So how long has the duo been playing together then?
17 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing, actually, for just about anybody. I'm sure we're kind of like an old married couple, actually, most of the time. But still maintain friendship. but still maintain business relationship. Well, we go, we get, we do this a little bit, but we usually joke around about stuff and just laugh it off. And when we play music, we do, we do well together. We know we've got a lot of miles. I would say, well, I'm sure we played over 3,000 gigs together. So.
Jeez. Speaking of marriages, boy, when you commit to things, you really commit to things. You've been doing a duo for 17. You've been doing music for a little over 40, and you've been actually married almost 40 years, right?
I've been with my wife for 38 years. And this month on the 18th, it'll be 35 years married. So.
Wow. So when you commit to stuff, you commit to stuff.
Yeah, I got a problem with that, but I got to remember to every once in a while, there's a time to break away from things. But yes, yep.
Okay, well,
I try to be a good friend. Yeah.
I want to bring up another musician that you're actually you were really good friends with, and a lot of people in our community know him. I know when musician Todd Eckert passed away, it was really hard for the entire community. But I know you were one of his close friends, and when you heard about the car accident and his passing, can you talk to me a little bit about your relationship and your friendship with him?
Todd and I, we spent a lot of time together. So Todd, when I met Todd, he was going under the moniker Hot Toddy, and he was playing. He was a DJ, and he also played some solo shows, and he would sometimes play with backing tracks and play guitar. Great voice. Good performer. Of course, everybody knows Todd was probably one of the best entertainers around here, actually, that I've seen come through here anyway. And he was funny. He was a handful. But so when he started playing more around town here, I saw him at Schooner's Beach Club, so the old Holiday Inn down in Canal Park, when it was on the low side there, and he was playing, and I'm looking at him, and I can't remember what song he was doing. I think he was doing "Joey" by Concrete Blonde, which I like that song, and I've never seen a dude do it before. He did a nice job of it. And I came up to him and I said, "Has anybody ever told you look like Jim Carrey?" And he goes, "No, no one." And then he did he does a uncanny Jim Carrey shtick. As a matter of fact, if you look it up on YouTube, you can find him doing the Jim Carrey song that he wrote. So, but yeah. So I met him then, and then Todd was writing his own music. I used to write my own music too, but I still sometimes do kind of put it in. I don't really do much with it. But so I had put a studio in my basement, and that's how we kind of got to know each other a little bit more. He wanted to do a few demos, did a Christmas demo, and then he wanted me to record some of his songs. And so we'd sit down in my basement and maybe drink a little booze every once in a while and sit down there and record till the wee hours of the night. My wife snoozed through it. She could sleep through just about anything. And I used to do demos for other bands too. So Todd and I got to know each other pretty well there. We talked about the Everly Brothers a little bit because my father used to do Everly Brothers with his friend when we were kids. They were kids, and they did a nice job of that stuff. And him and his girlfriend Lori from out in California, he was with her for I think about 11 years. But anyway, they used to do it every once in a while, and so we decided to let's do this Everly Brothers thing. So he arranged the band and got his backing band, the same band that still was playing with him when he passed. And we did. I think I did 5 Everly Brothers shows with him, and I do he'd do the lead and I'd do the harmony notes or whatever. He tried to get me to cut my hair, and I wouldn't. I had long hair back then, and I was going to cut it, but then he kept pressuring me to cut it, so I just wore it in a ponytail. I was like, nope. But yeah, Todd. Todd and I we did some out of town gigs, did a little bit of traveling. Got flown out to Washington to do a corporate gig one time, do 18 songs on the bottom of a mountain. They flew our wives out with us. Did 18 songs down there and put us up for 3 days, and we were in Wenatchee. That was pretty cool. I did a lot of things with Todd I probably wouldn't have done if I wouldn't have met him. So and I got a lot of recordings of him. He's really funny. Some of them I can't play in public, but yeah. Todd and I, we got to be pretty good friends, good enough friends to argue. So that's kind of like a brother. And but we were I got to talk to him probably about a month before he passed. I talked to him for about an hour, and I was glad we did because we kind of, talked about a lot of different things and had a couple laughs and stuff. I was very sad to see him leave the community. I mean, a lot of people associate me with him because we hung out a lot, and everybody knew him around here. And a lot of people that come to see me go to see Todd, and so it's so I've been trying to fill a little bit of that hole, like with requests and things, to try to do some of the material. I used to kind of stay out of Todd's kitchen because I'd do a request, a one-off every once in a while, but not do certain songs because I was like, well, it's kind of his bag, but he's gone. There's a hole to fill, that's for sure. So he leaves a pretty big hole, as a matter of fact, Todd.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking about him. I appreciate you telling the stories as well. That's pretty cool. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested in listening to that part. They probably didn't even know some of those things. So
yeah, a lot of people don't know. One thing they don't know about Todd is when he was out in California, because of his girlfriend Lori, he was really well connected, and of course his personality. She was really well connected in the Americana sort of musician, and they would get together. Well, he met James Wilsey, which was one of his idols was Chris Isaac, and James Wilsey actually they got to be friends for a while. He had actually sent a solo that we dropped into one of his tracks on one of his songs at one time before he passed away. He's the guy who did the Wicked Game solo. Anyway, that was kind of an interesting.
Nice. Well, you did bring up that you've written music before, and I knew that, and I wanted to bring this up because I'm curious. All these years, 40 some years, I don't know how long you've been writing, probably an awful long time, but I've always wondered why you haven't put out a album of just your own writings.
So for most of the time, well, like I said, I wrote a few songs in the first band I was in, and we played them, and people actually kind of liked them, so it was okay. But one of them was you don't know what you got till it's gone. It was before Cinderella, actually. It's a totally different song. It sounded like a bread song, but same exact title anyway. But so yeah, I would write back then, and I was pretty reserved about sharing that part, but that's what I wanted to do. But like I said, I got caught in the cover scene, and at the same time, I mean, I left my house when I was 17 years old. I was living on my own already. I already had 3 jobs, including playing out. I joined a band called Looker back later, but and a couple before that too, where I was jobbing, 3-4 nights a week. And I was working 30 to 60 hours a week during the day. I was unloading trucks. I was I lumped trucks. I worked as get on the extra list on the longshoremen. I would go and I cleaned for general cleaning at night, and then I would lump their trucks in the morning because I could talk to the truck drivers and get who was coming in with whatever load and do that there. I did roofs. I laid carpet for 15 years. I did music retail for 20 years, off and on, 12 years at Holly Music, about 9 years at Grand Central Music, Show Pro when I was real young. And so I was doing that at the same time as trying to just make a living. And so that was mainly why I didn't really have the luxury of sitting in mom's basement. And then I went out with a girl for 4 years, met my wife when we were raising kids. And so I had to make sure I concentrated on that. So I would write, and I put something in a bucket. I've got, stacks of stuff like this sitting around, that have little ideas and things. And then I've still have my studio. I don't really use it down there very much, but if I have an idea, I can turn it on, get a chorus and something. And I might do something with it someday. And I was in a band called Karma Fist. And we played together for about 8 years while I was playing my solo gigs. With Tom Horn, Steven Skogstad, Scott Skoglund joined us, and that was it. We wrote a lot of songs. We would actually. Tom wrote some good poetry, so we would play off of each other. Sometimes I'd write a verse and he'd write a chorus, or vice versa, and then we'd all contribute to it. And then I self-produced it in the basement and learned how to use that. That happened by accident because I put the studio in there first, and they were my brother's friends, and they're like, "Hey, do you want well, do you mind if we came over and jammed sometime? And so they did, and they never left. So I think we had about 2 albums worth of stuff, and we put one out, and unfortunately, it ended up being more of a demo because I didn't back it up, and it crashed, and I just had little snapshots here and there, some of them. So we expounded on what I couldn't put all those hours in again.
Well,
That's a bad mistake.
Hopefully, before you eventually walk away, someday, or maybe you'll never walk away. I don't know, but hopefully you'll put out an album of just years of stuff that you've written, just even if it's just a local thing for the Twin Port fans and stuff, just to be able to have, an album of your original stuff.
Yeah. There's some stuff that I'm not ashamed of, so I could probably do a few. That's a friend of mine said that wants to, write something you're not ashamed of. That stuck with me.
So what's the farthest you've actually traveled to perform in a show?
Yeah, probably Washington. Yeah, that's the farthest. Oh, well, we get in my 69 Brown van and load it up with my buddy Mark Messina, my cousin Dave, and my brother, and we'd go up to Canada or whatever. We'd do that. But man, yeah, Washington would probably be the farthest. What else have I done? Yeah, that was probably the farthest, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So
I did get flown out to do an album out in California. We were there for 2 weeks to sing on an album, and that was with a band called. It had a bunch of weird names, so I won't get into that. But that was a friend of mine, Tom Borgren, was doing sound for us one night, and he said, "Would you mind going and singing on an album?" And he was creating in his studio up on Leicester River Road for many years, and I didn't really know Tom very well, but he said, "I like your voice, and would you just come and sing?" So I worked on some stuff with him, and we got 17 songs, I think it was. And it was he got some interest from some producer out there, and he was actually he'd done a lot of stuff for a lot of people. His name's Scott Matthews, and had a lot of writing credits. He had a lot of great stories, and it was a cool little studio. It was a great musician's vacation. So, we did 2 weeks out there. We got the weekend off. I got to go see a lot of stuff while I was out there. We'd go from San Jose. We stayed at my friend Randy's house there, who's also a fellow musician from used to be Duluth, Randy Thelmany. And we knew all of them. A couple of those guys. Merle's gone, Mick's gone, Mick Jackson. He was in that band. But anyway, the guitar players that Tom was working with, I think he had maybe a little falling out with one of the guys, or there was a little discord, but the other guy, his wife wouldn't let him go. So he asked if I knew any other guitar players. So I said, yes, I do. So I called up my friend Rick Turk and I said, hey, do you want to go record an album in California? And he goes, hang on a second. And he was kind of going through a divorce, and he goes, yeah, I do. And so he went out there, he learned the songs, and we did practice for about a few weeks, and we went out there and recorded it. Nothing really ever came of it, but I got some pretty good recordings there too.
Nice. So where do you think that your love of music came from?
It was probably inspired by my dad. Listening to my mom and dad, they had a stack of old scratched up 45s, and I'd go through. I liked old 50s stuff. So my dad was into all the outlaw country, and he's saying, I know every Hank Williams song, whether I like it or not. And I do like it, it turns out, now that I'm older. So I can remember the words to almost any Hank song because my dad used to do them all. He was big on Johnny Cash, all those things. And he played with his friend Pete Larson, who's still alive. Matter of fact, I need to go visit him. But, Pete actually had been asked by, was Bobby Bear, if he would come and do an opening act, and among other people, but his wife wouldn't let him do it. So he was a really good tenor singer, and him and my dad used to sing well together. My dad was a flat picker. I still have his guitar sitting right over there, but it's got a little spot on the back where his thumb was sitting, where that wore out. He bought it in 1980 from a guy that was looking for a bag of dope for $150, and it's a great guitar. But
so, besides your dad, who were some of your musical influences growing up?
Well, I liked a lot of the singer-songwriter. I was a big ELO fan. I was into a bunch of metal and stuff too. I liked one of my favorite bands when I was younger was Nazareth. I saw them 7 times. I loved them. I loved that guy's voice. he had a really, he was kind of like he had a voice like a razor blade. And was it? I can't think. He just passed away too. But the guy who sang "Love Hurts," that guy. But last time I saw him was at the Cove. I liked him a lot. I don't sing. I don't sound anything like him, but I just liked him. I enjoyed. I really liked Robin Zander's voice. I love Brad Delp's voice. Used to be able to sing a lot of that stuff when I was younger, and I was a little higher tenor. And I'd warm up with all those high harmonies when I was a kid. Before my voice changed, and then even after my voice changed, I could still sing a lot of that stuff. So, but now that I'm 61, dropping a few notes now, but you got to maybe change a key here or there. Yeah.
So in 40 years, no, I don't expect you to remember all the bands' names, but if you had to estimate, how many bands do you think you were actually part of in the 46 years?
Okay, so the first band I was in name was Onyx. That was with my best friend Casey. I think you know Casey.
Yeah, I know Casey Johnson. Yep.
Yep. And so that was my first band. Let's see. After that, I was in a band with Ernie Ellison called Vision. I was no, I'm sorry. Before that, it was a band called Sentinel. And that was a metal band. I didn't mean to be in that band. They were friends of mine. It was Todd Bergeron, who's a fantastic guitar player. He was a West Duluth guy, and Dan Burgess. So we had guitar players that could play anything, John. I mean, those guys were so good. And our drummer was Dave Mahoney, and our bass player was Jerry Sulquist. Everybody was just solid, except for me. And they wanted me to sing all this stuff I didn't feel like singing, like Scorpions and I mean, some of I could do them back then, but I didn't. It wasn't my forte, So, but that's a band that I joined because Pete Provost, who's a fantastic singer, is still around the area. He lives down in the Minneapolis area, I think now. He just did a show not too long ago. He was in the Lounge Hounds with Ron Coivisto. Pete Provost, fantastic singer. More of a soul singer, but he could sing that metal stuff like that. He was just great. Been singing since he was a little kid. And they asked if they could use my PA over in Superior. So we went to a garage. Pete sang, and I'm listening to him. I go, wow, that's the best singer I've ever heard right there. That guy's great, And I was telling Todd and Jerry, I'm like, that's your guy. Well, then Pete decided he didn't want to do it. And they're like, would you sing? And I'm like, okay, but there might be some of the stuff I can't do. So we were doing Led Zeppelin and Scorpions and Judas Priest and Rat. And we did, what did we do? I think we did 4 Iron Maiden tunes. And so that was a good band. It was a really good band. Those guys were great. And I did the best job I could to do it. And we started to develop a little bit of a following. We couldn't find many gigs around here, though, because back then, I don't know if you remember, but the 50s bands were king here in the 80s. Review bands like Shaboom and Uncolas and all those guys. So we'd have to play the outskirts, or we could play over at the Pacific Club. We played at Casablanca, I think. That's where we played. And maybe at Casablanca. No, Pacific Club was later. Yeah. But yeah. So there was that band. Oh, that's right. You asked me a question about how many bands. A lot. Yeah. So Sentinel, Vision, Onyx. Then I joined Looker. I was in that band for 9 years. I was the only unoriginal member at the end of that band. I was still doing it. And then I joined. I put together a band called Top Heavy with Chris Antstedt. My brother Casey was in it for a little while. My cousin Dave, my brother Russ was the keyboard player. That went through a few different. Corey Benson was a bass player. Had a few bass players, and at that same time, Inside Out singer had dropped out. I was in Top Heavy and Inside Out for a little while. At the same time, Nothing Sacred, Rock Bottom. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. I was going to write that down too, because I figured you might ask. But
well, no, I didn't expect you to remember all the names. I just thought maybe in 40 years you'd just give me an estimated number.
I think about 18 bands actually, because not counting a couple that I filled in with for a while. So yeah, okay. With the last two, probably 20, 22, I guess. Come to think of it now, when I really think back on it, yeah. So, and I was in a band with Ron Coivisto called the Roundhounds, actually. Yep. I took Marty Moen's spot when he left, which is, really didn't take a spot because he played everything. And I was just a singer who played guitar, but they just wanted to get some new blood in there. I think I did that for a couple of years with him.
Yeah, but your memory of all these different band names and all these different members and the guys that you played with is remarkable. Half of the time, I can't remember what I did yesterday.
Yeah, and there's still some of that. I was in a band called Major Woody with Dave Clift, and it used to be Major Woody and the Privates. That's what it was called. I joined it. It wasn't. I didn't name it. And,
Oh my God!
so I was the bass player in that band. I think we were together for about 4 or 5 years, and that went through a few drummers too. Tom Anderson was in there, a dear friend of mine. But Ferd, he used to be in the Rage. He was our drummer. So yeah, I played bass, and we played a lot of shows with that band too. Kind of a rock band, just a classic rock band.
Do you play any other instruments besides the guitar?
I not really. I play a little bit of ukulele every once in a while. I messed around with the banjo for a little bit. I just never got around to learning it. So my mother had bought one at a rummage sale, and I took it and I had it fixed up, and I learned a few rolls and stuff. I've always been a finger picker, but I'd always go back to playing and learning songs. That's the problem with me, is I haven't stopped long enough to learn what I wanted to learn on the guitar, or I've just been playing my whole life. So
Okay.
so sometimes when you get 2 days off, you don't want to pick it up, but I still do most of the time, because it's kind of like sitting right back there, and it always wants you to pick it up.
So in 40 years, besides playing for 46 years being a huge accomplishment by itself, if you had to sit back and just think of one thing out of your music career, what is the biggest accomplishment, do you think, out of your career?
I would say actually being able to just sit in front of people with just me. That took the longest in public. Also, public speaking was always it was a tough thing that's why thus the not very many interview thing. I had a real bad experience in speech class a long time ago. I mean, I can sit in a bar and bullshit with anybody, but yeah, I have to also filter myself a lot of times because of what may or may not come out of my mouth. The way I was raised and how I grew up, I have to sit in the seat of consciousness and make sure what comes out, so that I don't piss people off sometimes. So that being said, my biggest accomplishment is actually being able to just sit there by myself and entertain people, rather than have the comfort of a band. When you're in a band, you can turn it up a little bit louder, or you can kind of hide behind that guy next to you. You can even look at somebody, maybe he made that mistake, not me. But when it's just you sitting on a stool playing in front of people, that used to be a pretty big fear of mine probably 20 years ago. And probably going up to, 27 years ago, I started going up north with my brothers, sitting around just playing with a really quiet crowd, unless they were drunk, but a real quiet crowd, listening to you. That's the hardest part, is when people actually listen. It's easier to go into a restaurant where you're just a little background noise. But if you were actually trying to do something and either move people or have some music's supposed to touch you in some way, whether it makes you happy or if it, for me anyway, I like things that have good lyrics and things like that. I like to be able to do the best job I can. And you have these expectations, and I had, pretty, I looked up to a lot of different musicians and went, this is a pretty high bar. So I always did that. And I realized that, it's supposed to still be fun, but sitting in front. And so I try to have more fun doing it now, but yes, just getting past myself so I can get the job done right.
Okay.
That's my biggest accomplishment.
Well, I do want to thank you, because you did bring up about the interviews, that some people might not be aware that in 40 years, you don't do a lot of interviews or podcasts. So I do appreciate you taking time to come on here and be willing to answer my questions and talk to me about your music career on my podcast. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And you've been in, you were a manager for Al Sands. I remember that. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's how I met you. I was playing at his, I think it was a fundraiser.
One of our fundraiser going away parties for when we were going overseas.
Yeah. I was glad. It turned out that Al Sands and I had something in common, and that was we both studied Wing Chun. So I've been doing that since I was a kid. I studied with Bob Larson back then. I tried boxing for a little while, but I led with my face most of the time, John, to be honest with you. And I couldn't get any of the coaches to take care of me. So I go in there and I'd spar with them. So I learned how to get hit. I learned I didn't like it. It's better to hit than get hit.
So
But
did you ever have any amateur fights, or did you just train?
no, no. I studied Wing Chun with Bob Larson for and the guy that took over his class, Bob Rodriguez, when I was a kid. After I went to the police gym for, I think it might have been about 6 months when I was a kid, off and on. And I got like back then there was Lagardes and the Hortons, and I had Pepe Rose's dad, Jesus. He kind of would help me, but they had their own fighters, you know. So I was just down there smashing myself in the stomach with a medicine ball and you know, doing the speed bag and punching the heavy bag and holding the bag for other people. But
Did you ever get a chance to work with Bucky McDonald at all when you were working with the Lagardes?
no, no. I mean, I probably met a lot of those guys. I was just trying to find my place in that whole hierarchy down there. I knew who all the good fighters were, and I had a lot of respect for all those. But you know, I'd spar. I used to spar with Billy Sossman. I don't know, or Billy Fronick, and I remember he had a hard right. I can tell you that, right down on the top of my nose. You know? And so I decided to do something a little more structured, and I picked Wing Chun because Bob Larson, who's also a comedian, or he was when he retired. He was in the Tough Man competitions back when, before UFC, before, you know, all that stuff, and he got pretty high up in the rankings too. He was a 6 foot something. You know? But, and then I learned from a little bit for a few years right around the COVID time there. I met one of Marty Anderson's students, and he actually helped me remember half of my sets because I would just punch and slam, man, for years. I just do it for stress relief and make sure I can still do it. And he taught me how to punch harder. That guy, that's for sure.
Yeah, he actually was involved with our team for a little while too.
Okay, yeah, I think I remember him saying that. Yeah, Marty had come to our class years ago and knew Bob, and I remember him having. Well, I think he studied under Shushang Tin for like 10 years or something. So
Okay.
yeah.
So
Which was
listen,
Yip Man's guy.
after 40 years of doing this, all the ups and downs, all the different duos, different bands and everything, obviously you've learned so much, things you should do, things you shouldn't do. What advice would you have for somebody that wants to be a musician?
Well, figure out what kind of musician you want to be. If you want to be a jobber, I'm a jobber, and so I've worked my whole life. The main thing that you get caught in between, I'm an artist and I'm a musician. And if you're a working musician, you kind of have to put yourself aside. Yes, do some things you want to do and incorporate that. People will enjoy or respond to stuff that you like to play, but you're really there to provide a service if you're doing it for someone else. So in order to actually make a living, and I don't know if you really make a living, you got to scramble to make a living or to keep it going. You know what I mean? Unless you're doing it in a really big way, you know, you're gonna do an album and you're gonna go support something like that. But I would say if you're gonna be a working musician, play people's favorite song if they want to. If they want you to do it, just humor them and do it. I would hang out. I wouldn't do certain songs, and I'd hide behind other musicians. Like if somebody else wanted to, we're going to sing this song for them. And I'm like, yep, you can sing that. And I'll just be back here and I do my part for it. But I started to just go, you know, well, she showed up and she shows up at my shows all the time. She wants to hear something, play it for them because it makes them happy. And that's really what you're doing. I go and do a few nursing home things now. I hadn't done it for years and years. And I started doing it back at, for the dementia unit, the Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's, and I'd go up to the Benedictine and do it. And I've realized that that's very gratifying because you see people that really need it. And so you go in there, they might not remember their family, but they'll remember how to sing a song. You know, I had a guy up there, he was like brilliant. He was a professor and he wrote books and things like that. I'm talking to him when I'm setting up. I didn't know he was a patient. But then when I got up there, you know, they were like, oh yeah, his parents, his friends came in and his family came in, and he didn't really know him that well, but he could still talk. And one guy would say, hey, you know any Hank Williams? So I play a Hank Williams song. And then a couple minutes later, you go, you know any Hank Williams? And so anyway, I played all my Hank Williams songs. I think I played about 6 or 8 of them. And I got to the end and I said, I don't think I know any more Hank Williams. And the nurse looked at me and she goes, just play the first one again. And I realized it just makes them happy, so I'm more into that right now. It's a lot of musicians, and most musicians are good people, and we're all quirky and we have our own thing, but some are in it for look at me or whatever. But it's better to do it in the service of other people, I think, because it really does give you an awful lot back if you're making people happy, and the mood's better in the room. You can suck the air out of the room pretty fast if you're just doing stuff that's self-serving, is what I mean. So I think that would be my. Sorry.
All right. No, that's all right. Oh, I'm learning a lot. I mean, you're reminiscing and you're talking about the old bands and the members and all this stuff. It's really cool that you remember all this stuff of the 40 years of playing. So, are you ready for the random 20 questions?
I don't know. I don't know. Let's find out.
All right. Question 1. Can you tell me about your background and your upbringing a little bit?
Sure. I was born on the Seville Road up in the country. My dad was the youngest of 6 kids. We lived up there in the country. My dad drank an awful lot. He would put me on like a papoose and ride us around on his Indian motorcycle and hit some of the bars sometimes. Every once in a while, he wiped out. My mother didn't like being up in the woods all by herself, so we moved to the booming metropolis of Twig. And because it had Jake's store and it had the Twig Cafe, so then maybe he'd just go over to the Twig Cafe and have a drink or whatever, and then she wouldn't be stuck there. So they got married and divorced a couple times. So it was pretty tumultuous. My dad liked guns. He had terroristic threats and things like that. My dad was not a bad guy. He was a hardworking guy. He had some demons. So he would go in and out of the work farm every once in a while. Hard worker. He could build houses. He could do just about anything. Good mechanic. So, but he was ex-Army. So it would be kind of like he taught me to get up in the morning. If I don't, that's why I don't usually like to get up in the morning now. But if I didn't get up, he'd just go get up, pull me right out of the bed. That would be it. So growing up, there was a lot of that. The cops that were at my house a lot when I was younger, they were having some domestic stuff. Married and divorced twice, got together a third time. So that's kind of a little bit of that. And then we moved around. We moved into town because my mom moved us into town. Lived out east for a little while. Lived up in the projects while my dad found a condemned house in West Duluth. Bought it for $5,000. Turned it into a house, and my mom and him reconciled again. Everything was okay, and we moved into the house there for a while. That was one of the things. And she got that house, and she was looking at a little bungalow. She's 81 now. My dad died when he was 62, which is a year older than I am right now. So, but she bought this little bungalow on the corner there. She still lives there in West Duluth. She said, "I'm going to take that. I'm going to sell the house, and I'm going to buy that after the divorce." So, but
so are you the only sibling that plays music?
My brother Russ doesn't do it anymore, but he used to play keyboards. He used to play some bass. Yep. So,
okay.
I lived in Lincoln Park for a little while in an apartment on 18th, right above the Craft District there. I went to Lincoln Elementary. I went to like about 6 schools when I came into town here, and then finally ended up at Denfeld. I was working nights at stocking shelves at the country store where Menards is now. Worked nights stocking shelves, worked a day job, did WESUP for a little while. I lied and said I was 16, worked at the country store. I was just 15. So I was always kind of a worker bee, and did music was a sideline. And then I had a spine surgery 9 years ago. Right at the time, the music store that I quit laying carpet. I laid carpet for 15 years. That was kind of my dad's thing and my brother's thing. And that's a tough job. It's a young man's game, for sure. So I ended up having a pretty extensive spine surgery. And then at the same time, the store that I was working at went down. I ended up sitting on the stool and playing music more often. So, and it's a good thing I had that.
So is music your full-time job now?
Still is, surprisingly enough. I never
Okay.
thought I would be doing it like this. That's the only thing I'd be doing, but yeah, it keeps me busy.
So, question two: do you have any hobbies outside of music?
When I was a kid, I used to draw and paint a lot. I could have had an art scholarship, but I turned it down because I didn't want to sit and it's kind of funny because talking about, how to do music and art. I didn't want to sit there and do like country ducks and paint lighthouses and be that kind of artist. I was kind of an odd. I would do kind of strange art, and so I didn't really see much of a future in it for. And I really don't do it either. Every once in a while, I'll still doodle a little bit, but I had a painting in the Tweed up there for a little while when they took certain students thing, and I could have had an art scholarship, but I just thought, nah, maybe not. I didn't want to get stuck doing that. Turns out now I'm just doing other people's favorite songs, So it's really kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing, really. Yeah. should have done that too.
All right, question three: if you could perform on stage with any musician or band, who would it be?
Living or dead.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Um, I'd perform with Shel Silverstein, and he wasn't really as much of a performer as he was a songwriter. I don't know if you know anything about Shel, but he was an illustrator for Playboy. He wrote children's books. He used to go under Uncle Shelby back then. He wrote almost every one of Dr. Hook's songs, like all their hits. He wrote A Boy Named Sue for Johnny Cash, among other things. I like that guy, so it would be fun to perform with him. He has this brassy, weird voice. That would be kind of fun. Um,
Okay.
that's one of them anyway. I got a few other heroes. But.
All right, question four: if you could own any wild or exotic animal, what would it be?
I never thought about that one. Yeah, they probably own you, but I'd probably like a big cat of some sort. Maybe you can't have a lion, right? I mean, they look cool. They probably eat a lot. Yeah, maybe a lion. Yeah.
Okay. Question five: are you a sports fan? And if so, what sports and what teams?
You know, I I really just like boxing and MMA fighting for the most part. I used to like hockey when I was a kid. I wanted to play hockey. That kind of was a lot to buy the gear back then, and I just didn't do it. But I used to go watch it.
Do you have any favorite boxers?
I like Sugar Ray Leonard a lot back when I was a kid. Of course, I loved Muhammad Ali. He was the best. Um, uh, I have warmed up to Tyson over the years. I didn't always like how things went morally but I like where he's at now. Fantastic fighter. I like George Foreman. I liked a lot of fighters. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I like Sugar Ray Leonard, man. He was fast.
yeah, he was good.
Yep.
They don't make them like that anymore.
Nope.
Question six: have you ever had an incident where you thought you might die?
Yep. Quite a few of those.
Any you're
Yeah.
willing to talk about?
Yeah. Like I said, when I was a kid, I took some death rides with my dad, quite a few. One in particular, where he did put me on like a papoose on the back of his motorcycle, and he took me on a little tour of the country bars, and he hit a bunch of gnats coming down over this hill right at dusk, and he fell off of it forward on it, and I was on his back like this. I remember looking up at the sky. I remember that really well. But yeah, another time I was on the end of a dock up at Caribou Lake. It's my earliest memory. I was probably my mom said it was when I was about 6 months old, and I thought it was a dream. When I was talking to her about it one day, she said that happened. I fell off the end of a dock, and my uncles and aunts my aunt and uncle, and my mom and my aunt and my dad and my uncle were this side, and my cousin and I were on the little kids sitting on the end, and they got to talking, and they didn't pay attention. I fell off the end of the dock. Fell off the end of the dock, and it was a sunny day. I can remember it vividly, but I started bubbles started coming out of my mouth, and they didn't catch me at first. And then somebody grabbed me by the hair. But I remember a sunfish coming up like this, swimming up to me like this, and then taking off with my vision. I didn't know I was drowning. But yeah, so that was one. Trying to think. Yeah, there's been quite a few things that I did that were a little stupid. reckless driving type of things. But most of them were with my dad. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Question 7. Now you touched on this a little bit. You did bring up the fact that you painted, but are you artistic in any other way with your hands besides playing music, like building things, photography, painting, drawing, mechanics, things like that?
I love taking pictures. I've never like aspired to necessarily be a photographer. I just like doing it and posting them on Facebook. And most of the time it's just with the phone camera or whatever. I've always wanted to get a better camera because I like taking pictures of the moon, and I can never get the one I want because it's just your hand's too shaky, or probably should get a tripod and an actual camera to do that. And I used to like carving things when I was a kid. I did a lot of that. I would sit there and carve, like uh, a handle on something and make like a club, or I would do like small like figurine type things. I still have a couple of blanks sitting around here somewhere, but
All right.
just for
So
fun.
now I know, and well, most people know that have ever been out to your shows or that know you personally. You're a pretty humble guy. You're pretty even keel guy. So I'm curious. Question 8: what is a pet peeve that you have?
I've gotten better at it, handling it. I can't stand it when somebody comes up in the middle of a song and they don't realize that you're not like a jukebox. They'll talk to you while you're singing a song. So imagine you're singing a song like "Time in a Bottle" by Jim Croce. It's got this beautiful descending thing, and you're weaving this melody in your mind. It takes some muscle memory and things like that. And my aunt would do this too. And I think people call them ask holes when they come up right in the middle of a song. That is one of my pet peeves, but I've gotten better at it. But it used to make me livid. And it would take me like 2 or 3 songs to recover when somebody did it, because I'd be like I'd want to yell at them. Like, are you serious? It's kind of like somebody like a crane operator is just ready to set something down, and they come up and they go, "Hey, excuse me." It's kind of like that feeling, I guess. But that's
I
fun.
didn't. I guess I didn't understand that people even did that. That they were
They
that
do.
lack of common sense that they would walk up in the middle of you playing and try to talk to you.
It happens about 2 or 3 times a year, and every once in a while they go, "Oh, sorry, that's right, you're doing something," And then I'm like, "Yep, I am." Sometimes I'll stop right in the middle of it, and I'll just go, "I'm sorry, what would you like?" Now I do is just do that. I just might as well make it part of the show because it's going to screw you up.
All right, question 9: if you could gift one person $1 million, who would you give it to?
That's a really good question. Me. Oh, if it wasn't me, let's see. Yeah, wow, that'd be a tough one, man. There's a lot of things I would give that to. I'd probably try to break it up into little things and give it to quite a few things. Uh, I'd like to see somebody do something with ALS. I could give it to that. I could give it to anything that I thought was a valid, or somebody that was really trying to solve something that a terrible affliction like that, something like Parkinson's. I don't like those diseases. I lost a couple people that I know to that stuff, and that's not a good way to go.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right, question 10: where's the weirdest or an unusual place that you've written lyrics for a song?
Uh, Not really. I wrote songs while I was walking down through like a sewage tunnel. I wrote one song while I was doing that because I was singing in it because I like the acoustics in it. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Let's back up. You just decided to walk through a sewage tunnel because you wanted to sing in it because of the acoustics?
No, I was just I would go down there. A couple friends of us would go down into it's more of a sewer drain type of thing, and it would go like almost under where A&Dubs is. You can go all the way from up on the hillside up by, was it Exeter? I can't remember. There's a way you can get in up there. That's pretty tight. Then it gets you down into the sewer system down there. So sometimes we go down there and fool around. But
Okay. All
shouldn't
right.
have been in there. Scary down there.
All right, question 11. If you were reincarnated as a fish, what fish would you want to come back as?
A shark.
All right. Question 12. What is the best life advice you've ever gotten from someone?
You know, from someone, mm, mostly the best thing that's helped me out with my life and some of the things that have happened with me. I like this book called The Four Agreements. I like a lot of that philosophy in that book. If you read it, it's a real simple read. I think if most of the world read it and actually followed some of those principles, it might make things a lot easier. Um, that's a good book. It's old Toltec philosophy is all it is. That and I think actually I like Willie Nelson's advice. He's like, let's see, I can't do anything about what happened yesterday, and I can't change it, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So I think I'm going to worry about right now. That's a good advice. I can't follow that advice, but I like that advice.
Okay. Question
I think I
13.
can handle right now.
13. What is your favorite gas station snack food?
Probably beef jerky. I try to stay away from the junk, so I try to find the best beef jerky I can if I have to.
Okay. Question 14. If you could change one thing in our society right now, what would it be?
Racism. I would like that to just go somewhere. I had about enough of it. So however you want to interpret that, I don't like it. I wish it was. I kind of learned my values from Mr. Rogers when I was a kid. He taught us to be tolerant of everybody, and I liked his. My parents didn't always, they taught me some good things, but I used to sit in front of that TV a lot. I think he had a pretty good method back then.
Okay. Question 15. When was the last time a stranger did something for you?
I am so grateful. I have had so many strangers do things for me, John. Um, One thing about the musical community is if something happens to one of us musicians, even if we have differences, almost all the other musicians will pull together. It's a cool community. It really is. Um, I My daughter was diagnosed with cancer, and every band member that I know got together, and we threw this huge benefit for her at that time. And she's since passed, Nicole. But that being said, I mean, the outpouring that you can get, um, like I said, I can't thank. There's so many people I could thank. You know, I am very grateful for that. So
Okay. All
that
right.
works both
Question.
ways too. You know, I,
Oh,
I don't
exactly.
mind helping. You know,
Question 16. What is something that you've earned an award or a trophy in that doesn't include music?
uh, did I? Oh, here's a good one for you. It's a little loaded question. Okay, I was in fourth grade class at where are we at here? Merit School. Okay, was and and I was a terrible student. I was couldn't keep my I I was always like drawing on the back of my worksheets, stuff like that. So in that class, Mr. Moser would put these tiles. He had 5 tiles for each day you were at school, and like once a week he would pick the superstar. Okay, I never got it because I was always screwing up. You had to make sure you had all your stuff turned in. You didn't get in any trouble, okay, or you didn't cause some kind of problem. So one day that year, he gave it to me because I just wanted to give this to John because he's never had it before. So we're giving him this award. That was my favorite award. So they give you like some cupcakes, and they give you like a pop, stuff like that, and you got to be superstar for a day in class. So that was it. Yeah, that was my favorite.
All right. Question 17. Do you have any tattoos and what are they?
I don't. I love tattoos. I love them on other people. I love the artistry of them. I've just never found anything that I really thought was cool enough to put on there. If I ever did, I would. But yeah, my mother always told me don't get one. She got my dad's name on her ankle, and when they got to packed it in for the third time there. She put a rose over it.
Okay. All right, question 18. If you had to spend 30 days in a jail cell, what comedian would you want to be your cellmate?
Well, you'd have to be in the same cell with you.
Yeah.
Could he be just in the next cell? Well, he's gone. Actually, you know what? If I was in there, I'd like to be in there with Lenny Bruce. That's who I'd like to be in there with. Yeah.
Okay. Question 19. If you were to go to outer space, what two people would you want to take with you?
My wife and my son.
Okay. All right. Question 20. Last question. If the mayor of the city of Duluth was willing to name something after you in the city, what would you want named after you for your 40 some years of service in the music industry?
Wow. I don't know if I can answer that one, John. Yeah. Nothing really comes to mind. Yeah. I absolutely cannot think of anything for that question.
See, that's how
I got,
humble of a guy you are. You can't even pick anything.
I really can't think of anything. Not one thing. Nothing stands out. Nothing grabbed me on that one.
See, and a lot of musicians would go, you know what? I've been doing this 40 years. Yeah, what do I deserve? What do I deserve my name on? And you're like, I don't know. I mean, maybe a street
Yeah.
like Bob
Yeah.
Dylan got.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's not a bad idea. Yeah. Yeah. I'd have to think about which street though. There'd have to be something behind it. There'd have to be a meaning behind it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking time to come on and do the 20 questions and tell all the great stories and talk about your music career and bring up different members from different bands and bring up a lot of different band names of people that probably even haven't heard those band names in years. And, you mentioned your friend Casey Johnson, who I'm aware of, Mr. Skater Boy from Saints back in the day and still does it. And everybody knows him for that. And we talked about Todd a little bit. So thank you for willing to talk about Todd as well. And if you got anything else you want to promote or mention before the show ends, go ahead.
I got nothing right now. I'm out there somewhere. I usually put it on my Facebook page, either my actual John Seguin music Facebook page or just my personal page. So, and if I'm playing with the John and Andy thing, it's on. We've got that set, and it goes on both his and mine. So, yeah, anybody wants to find us, that's where you can find us.
Yeah, and I actually have your Facebook page going across the bottom of the screen, so anybody can go there and check you out on a daily basis, or just see where you're playing for the following weekend, or what's going on with you.
Yeah, this week I actually have 2, 3, 4 private events that I'm doing, and then I have on Sunday I'm playing with the Rhythm Brothers and John and Andy with the Rhythm Brothers. Maybe Rob Malinkovich too. He sometimes comes, sometimes he doesn't. But we're playing at the Third Base in Carlton from 4 to 8 for Sunday Fun Day on Sunday. So yeah, let's talk about that.
All right. Well, hold on, and the truth has spoken.